Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. We start every meeting by standing and pledging our allegiance to the flag. So if you would join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a proposed consent agenda here for tonight, and because we've got so many people here in the audience, we'll just go over all of it. The adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second, plus an affirmative vote by members present, approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove any item from the consent agenda. This item will come up for discussion as part of the regular agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite routine matters so the board has more time to deal with substantive matters. So we have this proposed agenda. If I could get a motion to bring that to the floor and we'll discuss it then. Mr. Hawk, and a second. Second. Mr. Marshall. Okay, is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to pull out to discuss? We're all okay? Okay. With that, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Wonderful. Next, the board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. Audience members seeking a response should complete a board correspondence sheet and return it to our district clerk, Christine Slagle, up front. Audience members are asked to adhere to social distance regulations when addressing the Board of Education. Is there anyone who would like to address the board tonight? Okay, is that on a? No. It isn't? Let's get through this and then so nobody wants to address anything on the agenda. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask if you would like to address us on something not on the agenda. If you would like to, the mic is yours. We have a mic up there.
Hello, my name is Mark Twitchell. I'm with the Darwin R. Barker Library and Museum Association. I'd just like to say a couple brief things about our association and where we've been for the last couple of years under the veil of the pandemic. When our association was granted a charter from the New York State Department of Education in the 1880s, we were chartered as an association library. Now, there isn't too much difference between an association library and a public library in terms of the type of services that we offer. However, an association library allows its board of directors certain latitudes and prerogatives to run the association as they see fit. And for the Darwin R. Barker, that has led to the formation of the Darwin R. Barker Historical Museum, such that our association is running two programs at the same time, the library and the museum. During COVID, of course, our activities have been suppressed as everyone's has. One of the major things that happened during that time was a new director of library services joined our association, and that's Mr. Graham Tedesco Blair on my left, and of course some changes of officers of the association. Standing behind me, Jeff Adams, who is our association president, and I serve as treasurer. Just before the pandemic struck in very early 2020, the association was joined by a curator who began the task of reinstituting the museum, which had been, for all intents and purposes, pretty much dormant for about 10 years. And we feel that the addition of the museum rounds out our community service quite nicely. We would very much appreciate the Board of Education and the community considering allowing Fredonia Central School students to visit not only the library but our museum too. There are several elements in the museum that could, I believe, fit nicely with curriculums and with electives as well. So that's pretty much all I had to say, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'm just going to wrap it up by saying I'm here tonight to inform you that we've developed a strategic plan starting back in 2020 that included the Fredonia school system, and that that went wayward very quick because of the pandemic. So we have reinstituted the strategic plan for 2022 to include an action item for reestablishing a mutually beneficial relationship with the Fredonia School District. Although the specifics are still under development, we envision this to include some sort of student visitation or field trip to our library and museum where students could experience various aspects of the library's offerings, as well as for students to gain an understanding of the history of the village of Fredonia while visiting the museum. So with that in mind, we would ask you to take into consideration allocating the appropriate funding needed to support any associated administrative and student transportation costs to the Darwin R. Barker Library and Museum. Our board and staff look forward to partnering with you to enhance Fredonia students' educational opportunities. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Graham Tedesco-Blair. I'm the Executive Director at the Darwin R. Barker Library. I won't take too much time because I would just be reiterating what Mark and Jeff had just said. We are here, we want to help, we would love to collaborate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have special presentations. Mr. Ziliaks, would you like to do the introductions?
Yeah, I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Piper in a moment, but first of all, I would like to say thank you to Wheelock Nation for coming out tonight and representing your school. Absolutely, we recognize Wheelock as an extremely positive, nurturing, and pleasant environment, and we appreciate that all you do at Wheelock to create that feeling for the community, for the families, and also, and first and foremost, for the students. We appreciate your hard work and dedication to early childhood education, and that shows through the moment you walk through the door at Wheelock. So, in a larger sense, please remember that the presentations and the invitations that we put out to people to participate get back to a district goals of ours to really better understand our instructional programs and what's happening in each building, especially at the classroom level that we might not be aware of just by being a board member or being a casual observer of the district. So we're excited to hear a little more information tonight. And Mrs. Piper, whenever you're ready, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome, thank you. I have to reiterate what Dr. Zoliak said, because this group of educators are bar none. They are amazing. The fact that they would give up a Tuesday night to come to a board meeting just shows you how dedicated they are to their students and to the community. So kudos to all of them. I will try not to do all the talking, which they're already mad at me about, if you see the looks that I'm getting. But I just want to do a quick overview of Wheelock. If you have questions, stop me, but certainly at the end as well, we'll have time for questions. So again, UBK and kindergarten are both housed at the Wheelock building, along with Buffalo Hearing and Speech and Little Seeds preschool programs. We really abide by the mission statement, as you can see there, that Wheelock really is a place of learning and exploring. Just drive by, walk through the hallways, where individuals really become their greatest selves. The vision, paving innovative pathways to dynamic and global educational experiences. Again, those were two of many that just stuck out to me that really encompasses what we do at Wheelock every day. So we're going to go through some highlights for specifically this year for UPK, and then we'll talk about kindergarten. We're going to go into each of these a little bit more in depth, but Mrs. Farrell passed out to all of you the approval that we received for Quality Stars, and there's some more information in that pamphlet, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This is the second year of the Petals Grant. I'm supposed to be by the microphone, but I'm pretty loud. And again, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Full day programming for most students. We just at this point I think have one or two that are here for half a day. And then the development of our outdoor classroom space, which we're really, really proud of. You can see throughout the PowerPoint there's pictures of our students playing and engaging. So Quality Stars is something that we have talked about, gosh, for at least a decade, but really have jumped in both feet this year. And Quality Stars is a way to really help us be better. It holds us accountable. It gives us standards that are really at the highest level for early childhood education. And if you know any of these women, because a couple of our men are not present, they really are always striving to be the best. And so Quality Stars really helps drive us to do that. So again, in front of you is the pamphlet tells you a little bit more about Quality Stars. So all of the staff members are required to register and aspire, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal. It really takes a lot of time putting in all of your professional development, all of your credentials. It takes hours to do this, and even everybody, our teachers, our aides, they all had to register in Aspire, and it requires ongoing professional development. It's quite a big deal to do that. And so all of our staff members are part of the Aspire registry at this point. We are not only held accountable to the New York State standards, but also the Quality Stars standards. So they take the New York State standards and they just make them a little bit more rigorous. So we thought, all right, why not? We can do that. We think we're pretty good, and it allows us to work even harder. So just a few more details about that. I honestly can't read it, it's too far away. But the information about Quality Stars is there in your handouts. But this was our first year. We spent some time doing some self-assessments, talking, looking at the protocols, the standards, and where we wanted to focus. And so we have an action plan, we have goals that we're continuously working on. We actually have a local woman who works for Quality Stars, Kathleen Saragusa, that comes out and meets with us monthly to see how we're doing in the action plan, how we're doing in meeting our goals, when we actually met our goals, so we can set new goals. It's never done. It's never done, which is another thing that intrigued me about Quality Stars. So again, we follow the UBK New York State standards, but also Quality Stars. It gives you one example there of Quality Star standard. Collects information and enrollment on children's development. So this year for pre-K, we had all of the parents fill out a social, emotional, behavioral checklist so we could get an idea of where parents felt like their kids were social and emotionally before they even started pre-K. And then after the teachers had the students for a month, they also completed a checklist. And we use that to help drive the second step curriculum, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is our social emotional curriculum. Miss Glass. I really want to call them out by name so you can know who they are, but they film me, so I won't. Right, you can see a couple of the standards I pulled out that are happening constantly if you walked into the pre-K programs. You can see kids there. I'm trying to see whose class that is. I think that's yours, that you have to play. Play-based instruction. So you can see some more pictures there. Playing outside every day. The Veterans Day parade, the kids got really into it and celebrated the song and made flags and hats and whatnot. And then our pre-K team in their Play-Doh costumes, all of Wheelock dressed up as Play-Doh, different colored Play-Dohs, and we had different colored hats for our colors so we could differentiate who we were, and the kids just ate that up. They thought that was great. Here is our outdoor classroom. And again, this is funded by Quality Stars and Petals. We have received over $5,000 in materials for our UPK classrooms and outdoor play space, so we can meet the UPK standards. We knew that it just wasn't part of the budget. We knew it wasn't something that we could do, but we feel strongly that it's important for the kids to be outside. And so you can see, I have to give a shout out to Ellen Foley and Jenny Smith, because they brought in so many things from home and their own creations and added to that. The two of them have really had a great vision for this, and we watched it come into play. I think those stumps are from your house, aren't they? Yeah, the stumps are from Bill's house. Yeah. Looks a little different now. It's a little white and wet, but they're still out there. They still love it. So we also were fortunate enough to attain the Petals Grant last year. It was a 2-year grant that we received for UPK. So what is Petals? Petals is Positive Emotional Development and Learning Skills. It was a competitive 2-year grant that we applied for. I had to go through a rigorous interview process, and we were granted this. We were the only school in Chautauqua County that gets the Petals Grant. Most of the schools are in Erie County. So we were able to receive the second step curriculum, and that is a social emotional based curriculum. But not only did we receive the curriculum, we got training. So they provided all the training for our teachers and for their classroom aides and for any special ed aides as well. Were able to take part in that training. And they didn't just do it once. They did it the first summer before we started, and then they had another 2 days of training the next summer, and they follow up with twice a month. We have a wonderful behavioral coach by the name of Star, who comes down from Erie County and is in their classrooms working with the teachers, working with the students, and is hands-on in the classroom working with them. So Star comes down and meets with them. But not only that, every week the pre-K teachers have to submit the behavioral data to Star to analyze and take a look at to make sure that the students are making growth through the second step curriculum and her coaching process. So it's extremely intense, and they happily do so and engage in this learning and engage in this professional development. It's pretty phenomenal. So again, the coaching is there, the screening materials they provided to us, and the training all at no cost under this grant. So, and not just that, they also received a small grant for each pre-K classroom, so they could purchase materials that were culturally diverse, that met the Petals social emotional curriculum through second step. I believe it was $750 worth of materials that each of the teachers were able to use to purchase play-based learning materials, blocks, books, dolls, you name it. So it was pretty phenomenal. Anything else about Petals I'm missing? All right. So you can see with Petals, they use music, activities, stories. They have very age-appropriate short mini lessons on social emotional behaviors. It covers a range of topics. We also have at Wheelock this year the Parents as Teachers program with Allison Gallardo. That was a new program we started this year. Allison comes to our school daily, works with parents and families who have children under the age of 4 and a school-age sibling. So she's able to actually do the Parents as Teachers curriculum in the home, working with families and parents on how to be better parents and how to, just meet the needs of their students that sometimes it's hard to do on your own. And so she provides that curriculum. She attends our weekly council meetings with Judith Pizzabella, who's here, our school social worker, and Laura Wheeler, our school psychologist. And it is run through the Jamestown Community Learning Council. So another big bonus. So one thing that I'm not sure everybody is aware of is that when students come to Wheelock, this is many of their very first exposure to school. And so part of school law is that we have to screen every child that comes in. So many times when we have students in a classroom, we don't really know anything about them. We sort of say that they look like they'll be good together. But a lot of times there are things happening. And we all know that there are things happening for kids, whether it's learning difficulties, hearing difficulties, vision difficulties, gross motor difficulties, I could go on and on and on. And so every child that comes into school, whether it's pre-K or K, needs to be not just screened, but individually screened in all of those areas. And then it's up to us to sort of filter them out and get them what they need. And sometimes it takes a long time for those things to sort of rise to the surface. Sometimes they're glaring, we know right away, but then to also work with the families as well. So to say, extraordinary things about these folks, I could not say enough about the time that they take to really get to know these kids and meet their needs. But this is something that, again, happens for every child that enters school, whether it's pre-K or kindergarten. So that was pre-K. Now I'm going to talk for a bit about kindergarten. So there are 7 sections of kindergarten this year. One is an integrated co-taught classroom with Kathy Rush and Adriana Padua. Beautiful. An integrated 1A1 classroom with Mrs. Naomi Pierce. And I say integrated because their students do integrate into a gen ed setting as well. And the focus at WELAC, whether it's pre-K or kindergarten, is early literacy, early numeracy, as well as the social, emotional, behavioral skills. So we do screen the kids in early literacy 3 times a year. We check to see how they're doing with their early literacy skills. We follow the CKLA reading curriculum. We had some work done in the district by Dr. Lori Strong a couple of years ago. She worked with our team to really create some age-appropriate assessments that were individual, that we really could get to the bottom of what kids needed. We're continuing to use those assessments as well as data-based interventions based on what the assessments show us. And we're also using the Engage New York math curriculum for math. And again, these teachers have worked so hard to tweak the program to make it age-appropriate, fun. You walk into the classrooms and you think they're playing, they're laughing, they're engaging, they're really enjoying learning at the same time. So this is an example of an individual, or this early reading data sheet that a teacher would have access to that just shows their class what the spread is at the fall for a high risk, medium risk, low risk to the winter, and then they'll have another one of these for the spring. But even more importantly, they get an individual assessment for each child. And it doesn't just give them a percentile or a number, it tells them the specific skills that the child had gotten correct, but also where they were in error and where they need to improve. So those are available through FastBridge. We do that as well for the social emotional behavior reports. The teachers fill these out again after they've been with the students for about 30 days. And they have this for each of their child again, each of their students fall, winter, and spring. So second step I mentioned in pre-K, we're also following the second step curriculum in kindergarten. And the nice thing about that is the language flows. The kids recognize many of the words, many of the songs, the emotions that we're talking about, their behaviors, right on into kindergarten. So all of the teachers are using second step every day along with their classroom aides. We really made a point, especially during the pandemic, to make sure that it was a social emotional behavior focus primarily for our 4 and 5-year-olds. Because if any of you know a 4 or 5-year-old, there's no way they're going to learn if they're dealing with something socially, emotionally, or behaviorally. They really have to get those behaviors and emotions in check first in order to be able to learn. So just a few pictures there, you can see things happening there, some finger painting, outdoors, Mrs. D's class, building snowman. Some sensory play, collaboration, constant collaboration, team building. Taste testing happening in this Russian computer. 100th day of school. We all laughed. Mrs. Padua was 100 years old. She played the role very well. She asked me to tease about it. See some of our students. We were glad to have the fire department back out to do some fire prevention this year as well. Bus safety. Mrs. Nadzinski's friends working in a small group. Pajama day. It was very fun. Some artwork. We had Mrs. Appleby come over one day a week to work with our kindergarten students. So our hallways are beautiful. And our tutu day, we had tutu and tutu. class from our collaboration. This is Matt's class.
Any questions from the board?
I'd just like to thank you, Mrs. Piper, you're obviously doing a fantastic job. Everybody came out, what a tight
They're
group.
amazing. They really are an amazing group.
Very impressive to see everybody here tonight. Just a little elaboration on your outdoor play, because with the pandemic, I started reading about the Norwegians and how they go outside all the time, and they say there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes.
True.
So, do you go out in bad weather? Do you?
Talk about that at all? Go ahead, Al.
We go out in bad weather. I warn the parents at the very beginning, your children are going to come home muddy, so they need to be prepared every single day to go outdoors. And so far, I haven't had any complaints. They love it. They check out the puddles, they jump in puddles, they measure the puddles, they watch the drains come down and they don't match the holes for the drainage here and the drains. It's just amazing what they observe and learn out there. And with the pandemic, I had children who were talking to each other because they could take their masks off when they were outside. They were able to communicate and work together and collaborate and have interaction. And as soon as they walked in the door, put their masks back on, there was really very little conversation going on. So we were really blessed to have that outdoor classroom exactly at the time when we needed it the most.
Yeah.
And the parents were very appreciative that their children were able to stay outside for an hour at a time. We each had an hour block where we could be out there with our class. And you need that amount of time for the conversations and the collaborations and they were moving logs and they were moving stumps and they were balancing on beach. I brought in driftwood from the beach. We had gourds, we had all sorts of things. So it's amazing the learning that goes on outside.
The hard part's getting out there. Once you're out there.
Now the classroom is ready, it's all cut and
I
closed.
just washed all of the snow pants yesterday and sent them home. So they were filthy.
And we always have extra,
Yeah.
snow pants and boots and everything's in the office and if we don't have them.
That's great.
And they're healthy. The kids were healthy.
Yeah,
They were outside and they were getting fresh air
yeah.
and so many people think, well, you can't take them outside in that weather, they're going to get sick. Well, no, they're going to be healthy.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful.
And the masks were off and we got to see each other.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I don't have a question. Wheelock has always been a beautiful place, and it just makes me so happy to see that it's even more beautiful. Every time I hear about Wheelock, it's better and better. So thank you for all of your wonderful work, and I'm just so happy to see it happening at Wheelock. So.
I think too, the smaller class sizes, I know that pandemic has done so many bad things, but the one good thing I think that it made for us was we got to have smaller class sizes over the last couple of years. And it's amazing what you can actually accomplish with the kids when you don't have 20 of them, but you have 15 and believe it or not, that 5 extra or 3 extra or even sometimes 2 extra makes a humongous difference. So thank you for the last few years giving us that opportunity, and we're kind of hoping it continues over the next years, please.
Ms. Hahn?
I also just have a comment. I mean, it's the quality of your program is, when I used to live in DC, my kids went to public school and I had a friend who paid top dollar to send her daughter to a place called Green Acres. And we were so envious. Her daughter played outside in all weather and was so creative. And that's what these kids, it's unbelievable that it's public. So that's really wonderful. Congratulations.
Just one question, but first I have to say, Mrs. Foley, I love that when the kids got to go outside, so I love that you do that. But I was just curious, because you were in person so early on in the, do you feel that, everything was seamless? Do you still see some struggles? And so I was just curious if you could comment.
Yeah, because I really want to comment, you guys are with the kids. What you guys saw as far as, it wasn't seamless.
So a lot of, because the older kids missing so many days, but you didn't, but you still have an effect, did that still affect learning?
It was so different just at the distance between them. You couldn't have them play together.
They couldn't share anymore.
It was difficult.
And that year, like, they only had half day of the pre-K last year, so you definitely did see the difference coming into kindergarten this year as to what, they did or didn't get. I mean, they definitely were lower coming in this year than I think you've probably seen in a long time. You had kids here and you had kids way down here with variety of different skills.
And their stamina, because they were used to half day, or some that didn't go at all, because when they came into kindergarten, we had kids that were in our pre-K, but then we had a lot of kids that were in nothing. And so for the long day, that stamina at first was a shock to their system, which, when we had, before the pandemic, pre-K was full day, they went into kindergarten, it was very, in that respect, it was seamless.
I don't know if you knew what we were doing, but each child had a tub of toys. And they would go to their spot on the carpet where their name was marked, 6 feet away from everybody else, and they would play with their tub of toys. They would hear a story from that distance. We couldn't sing. I mean, half of pre-K is singing and games and Ring Around the Rosie and Farmer in the Dell, and it was just heartbreaking not to be able to do those things. So we would go out and we started doing the hill challenge. We would walk down the hill and run as fast as we could to the top to get exercise, and then they would stand 6 feet apart and we would sing the patriotic songs, because I couldn't give up my patriotic songs, but I couldn't sing them in the classroom. So if they were 6 feet apart and we were singing outside, maybe we could do it, but it was just, it was sad. It was so they couldn't work together, they couldn't form deep friendships because they had masks on. We would go, we ate in our classroom 6 feet apart. They didn't have that conversation going. There were some conversations because I had some cousins who just didn't know any different, and they just kept chatting and kind of modeled for the rest of the kids, but it was so sad. It was half a day. We couldn't have the parents come into the building like we'd love to have. We couldn't have the Flag Day parades. We couldn't have the Halloween parades. No parties, no, So when we sent them off to kindergarten, we just let the kindergarten people know, they're not ready. They're not ready. We would love to keep them for another year. We need them for another year so they can have a normal experience and play with the blocks. We'd have to wipe everything down with bleach and, it's just very sad.
I was blessed in my classroom. I got to loop with my kiddos. So my kiddos that I had during the shutdown, I kept those same kiddos and I went to kindergarten with them. So in our classroom, I already had a rapport built with those kiddos. I already had, my routines were established. Yes, it switched from pre-K to kindergarten, but the biggest thing that I noticed is they had already become a family because we were in pre-K for that first half of the year together. Then we were on Zooms together. They ended up being like brothers and sisters. They bickered like brothers and sisters. But the one thing I will say is they came back and they're like, I miss pre-K. We could play together. Because it was exactly like Ellen said. We had bins. They took them back. They weren't playing with each other. They weren't collaborating with each other. They were building huge structures and towers and all these amazing things with the magnet tiles and with the blocks. And now all of a sudden it's like, here's your Ziploc baggie full of blocks. Go figure out what you can build with this Ziploc baggie. Instead of being able to collaborate all together and make this huge structure, they're now just at their individual desk or their individual table building by themselves. So that was like the biggest thing. And even the kids recognized it. They're like, I just wish these masks would go away and go back to like it used to be. Because they recognized it. They knew the difference. They saw the changes. And being in the same classroom with the same teacher, same aide, they knew what it used to be. So for them, it was a huge change of, nope, sorry guys, we have to do it this way. We tried to make it fun. I built Jeeps for my kiddos. Like we tried, like everybody, we tried to do different things. We took what we had and we made it work for them. We tried to keep the joy for them because, you know, when push comes to shove, this is their first time at school. We wanted to make it as fun and as special as possible for each and every one of them. And I think all these teachers, we all did just that, and those kids thrived.
For our pre-K and our kindergarten students, up until March 2nd, they had never been in school without wearing masks. And that was a big change for them, but the smiles that day, oh, I so tear up. One of my little ones said to me, she goes, now this really feels like home, because I can see everyone smile.
I had one say, where's your mask? You're freaking me out. Where's your mask? And I go, where's yours? And she goes, I don't have to wear it. And I'm like, neither do I.
Could I ask one favor? If everyone, all the teachers, aides, everyone from Wheelock, if you would stand up for 1 minute. Okay. I want to tell you one thing. At the end of every board meeting, we go around this table and we ask all the administrators what's going on in their schools. There isn't one meeting that goes by when Mrs. Piper does not say that you guys are the best. She doesn't say, you know, Wheelock, you know, Wheelock, you know, it's just another school. She touts Wheelock as the school that it really is, and it's something special. And I want you guys to know that you know, it's not just, we hear it every day. And if you think that Mrs. Piper is not touting on you, she is. She thinks that you're the best.
We feel the same way.
I think that the board realizes what's going on in Wheelock, and we realize that it is so critical at the beginning of our students' life, at the beginning of their schooling, that they get off to a good start. Because if you miss that start, it's, you know, it's tough. Thank God that my wife took care of my daughters at a very early age, because I wouldn't have done a good job, but they got started well. It's the same thing at Wheelock, and I thank you very much for that. Thank you for all of this. Okay. Mr. Zalax, we have another presentation.
Yeah, and I don't know how long people are hanging around this evening, but we appreciate you being here. And if you're looking for an exit,
Before the numbers come out.
we will leave that up to you.
Thank you. No, they didn't come for you, John.
So as we talked about in our last meeting, part of our job at this point of the year is to put together a fair, reasonable, and thoughtful budget looking forward to next school year. Again, please know that we take this portion of our job very seriously. We recognize the impact that our budget has across the district on both students and adults and families attached to our district. We try to be as thoughtful as possible in this process and really put together a plan that meets the needs of our schools, of our district, of our students and families, but also keeping in mind at a price, so to speak, that our community can support, feel good about, and afford. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. Forbes to share the second budget presentation as we begin to hone in on where our budget will fall eventually here in another couple of weeks.
So this evening's second presentation of the budget in summary. It's about $220,000 less than the draft that you saw last meeting. So in the expenditure area, you can see the breakdown. Salaries and benefits typically runs in that 70 to 75% range, and we're right there right now. You can see the other expenses across the board. BOCES services, of course, is a pretty substantial amount of the budget as well, and that's still up at 12.8%. As mentioned last time, I just kept the slide in this time, we did have a number of resignations and retirements. We have 6 staff replacements budgeted for those 6 positions, and 4 of those folks were eligible for the contractual retirement incentive. The next slide breaks down where we stand right now with the equipment request. You can see the largest one is the maintenance department, which is requesting vehicles. We're working through that right now. You can see across the board, you've got elementary, for example, is classroom furniture. High school would be including anti-vaping detectors in the bathrooms. There's things of that nature in there. The rest is typically what you would see across the board at this time of year. And I do want to point out too, because Mr. Bennett had given his report a couple meetings ago, we do have in the continuation of the music replacement of $15,000 under the curriculum. As I mentioned, the BOCES services were up considerably. Lots of changes in the area of special education driving that. We've also had an increase of 13 slots in the occupational education, career, and tech area, which is a reflection of an increase in the number of students that aren't college bound but are looking for a start towards their career through BOCES. We also are up $32,000 in the capital expense line for projects. This was a push off from pre-COVID where BOCES had proposed an amount over a couple of years. They stopped because of the COVID. Now they brought the projects back up again, so we're seeing a reflection of that this year. Next slide is a breakdown of our debt service, and you can see over the last 2021 to 22-23, it's fairly flat. We've been able to keep it that way based upon going from the bond anticipation note to the serial bond for 2018 project. The energy performance and Excel, those were scheduled previously. In this draft revenue and fund balance, we have an estimated school tax levy of $17,500,000, state aid of $13,876,000, federal aid, which is our Medicaid, I should say Medicaid, not Medicare, aid is $100,000, and our local sources, which would be things like non-resident tuition, interest, admissions from athletic events, those kinds of things, we're at $444,000. We've currently assigned $1 million of fund balance in this draft, which would be 3.03% of the budget. The next slide breaks out the state and federal aid that the district receives in comparison to 2021-22. The big note would be foundation aid, which is your non-categorical aid. We're at the 3% level, which is reflected here budget to budget. You can see the building aid is up, estimated is up $196,000. That reflects an increase in the aid we're anticipating based upon the expenses for the emergency project for the chimney at Wheelock School. So we have to budget that in because we'll get that next year. BOCES aid is up because we've had increased services over the last couple of years. And the rest are based on you spend it, you get it. So transportation, hardware, textbook, software, library aid, they're all categorical. So this slide is a comparison of the current 21-22 budget, which is the far left column. And then the middle, draft 1 is what you saw last time. Draft 2 is this time. The difference on the right-hand side is the difference between draft 2 and the 21-22 final budget. You can see the top half is expenditures. So our budget currently is up $1.7 million. The bottom half is revenues and fund balance, which has to balance, as we explained last time, which is also $1.7 million. Tax levy limit, this is a slight change from what you saw before. We were at 1.04% in the last draft. We work with Municipal Solutions, which is a district's financial consultant, and then we had to file the tax levy information with the state, and we were able to tweak it to 1.12 or $182,000. That's a difference of about $20,000.
Question on that, John, was that recapturing any of the unused tax levy from the previous years?
Based upon the tax cap calculation, we weren't able to carry that forward because we had the 0% last year. An interesting note there too, when you get the formula from the state, they give you a growth factor, there's CPI, and then you plug in your debt service, both expenses and revenues. There was no adjustment for teachers' retirement or employees' retirement system this year. So when you do the initial plug-in, we actually were in a situation that we had a negative cap this year. We were able to get to the positive because when you input to the state, you're not allowed to amend any prior information. You have to use what they have in there, and that allowed us to get up to the 182,000. The next slide is just a comparison that shows how we've done with the levy limit versus our actual levy. So if you were doing it today, you would be entitled to 1.12%, and we're actually at 8.49%. If we ever did anything like that, you require 60% or more positive vote, and certainly we're not in a position to do that today. Taking a look at the comparative budget data, you see that over the last 5-6 years, we've been somewhere in that 1 to 2% overall. We're currently at 5.51%. To get to the cap, we would need to take out an additional 1.1 million from this draft, and to get to a zero, 1.4 million. We also have in this budget a proposal for the capital outlay. Of course, that's a $100,000 project. You get 82.7% aid back on it. We're again trying to focus on Wheelock School. I think the last meeting I had mentioned we were looking at blacktop replacement, obviously the architect's fee, and then we have to do $10,000 worth of work inside, which would be to upgrade a bathroom. Since then, we've also talked with our fire system panel people, and our Wheelock School is a little bit outdated, so we're taking a look at the possibility of doing that as part of the outlay, in addition to keeping the blacktop and the bathroom upgrade in there. So we should be able to come back with that once I get a final quote in about a week.
Any questions, comments for John or myself, but mostly John?
I guess we have a little bit of work left to do on the budget, so do we have some target areas that we're like zeroing in on, or it's still a sizable number? So.
It's a sizable number. Mr. Rutledge would say this every year. I'm a little concerned about how I'm going to get to where we have to get to in my mind. So I took a look today at some of the things that are driving it, and they're costs that you can't really control. So we're taking a look at that. I can tell you I've got about $290,000 of reductions on the table that'll go in tomorrow. I didn't want to put them in today and then have you ask a question about the presentation and have a completely different set of numbers on my paper. So they'll go in tomorrow. And some of that is actual changes to line items based upon updated figures or things we don't need. Some of that is removal of the extra that I had budgeted in categorical areas to start, things like extra slots of boxes and that kind of thing. So kind of a combination of each and continuing to work it down.
But in terms of programs at any of our building levels, we're not concerned, or we're not?
We haven't touched any program. That's the question.
Please also remember that the proposal that we have right now from New York State is typically the worst-case scenario, although it wouldn't be enough money to cover the gap that we currently are seeing. There could be an increase. We could also consider adding additional fund balance to offset some of that cost. And, like Mr. Ports had mentioned, there's, areas where we can sharpen our pencil and take a closer look. And I think we'll be there by the time we get together again. It's just a matter of really processing, prioritizing, and running that through a couple times to really make sure we're being responsible and thoughtful with how we get there.
So I got one question in regards to the equipment request. So we have, the large number here is 80,000. I would assume that's for a couple of pickup trucks, or is that?
A truck and a tractor.
Okay. And so, because those are one-time expenses, is that something that we could add out of fund balance to cover that nut?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're actually looking at that.
Next year.
Right.
And then that's 30% of this budget.
I have a question going to this here, the budget summary. Just curious, like under equipment, instructional equipment, in the 3 years pre-pandemic, we were around 70,000, and this year it's 150. Any reason for that, or?
It's being driven mostly by the elementary school and the high school. The elementary school is 5 or 6 classroom furniture requests. So Mr. Drollinger and I have had a brief conversation about that. He's taking a look at that. And the high school, as I mentioned, is the vape detectors in the bathrooms, about half of that number, so.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So again, to Steve's question, that would be covered with fund balance also.
Theoretically, yes.
Are there any grants or things that are on the table to use as far as monies available through the federal or state, like the Smart Schools on deck, that could be applied to any of those costs?
I don't know if there's anything specifically for things like vape detectors. Perhaps we can look at that together. But we do have, through the American Rescue Plan, we're going to have the need to do some amendments there, so we would have to look and see what we're allowed to do there, so that's a possibility or something like that.
Only because it's technology. Okay. And it's safety and health.
Yep.
Trying to understand the BOCES, so we have an increase of 13 more kids going, and an corresponding increase in the budget of 528,000 from what it says BOCES budget final, BOCES budget current draft. So is there, if we keep having kids more and more go to BOCES, do we absorb that additional cost, or do we get that back somehow?
Well, there's a couple parts to your question. First of all, the 500,000 isn't isolated to just the occupational education piece. We have a variety of services that we do through BOCES. A lot of our technology, guidance office, there's a little bit of cafeteria, nurses, things like ALT-ED in the high school, Audubon Society for Wheelock School. So there's a whole 6 pages worth of BOCES services making up that number. Secondly, we do get BOCES aid on the services, which is a categorical aid, so that will be next year. Because BOCES fluctuates, our cost with BOCES fluctuates year to year, you don't want to build in too much in the budget process and then realize that, oh, you didn't use that service, and now you're not going to get aid that you've put in there ahead. So kind of got to walk a little bit of a line with the aid side of it. But part of the evaluation in the next 2 weeks will be a review of transportation costs from last year and aid, BOCES costs from last year and aid. Software, computer, hardware, and library materials, they came out about 5 or 6 years ago and allow you to be flexible. So when I do the reporting in August on the ST3, which is about a 120-page expense document that goes to state, you're allowed to massage those 3 categories so that you maximize your aid. And so I don't really ever worry too much about those. So it's the big ones is BOCES and transportation.
So something unique to this is the American Rescue Plan now. So how does that work? Like, we've received some money. Is that baked into this budget for this year, or?
So any of the grants, either the title grants or the American Rescue grants, are not in the general fund. At the original start point, I would have had, as an example, your full salary in there. And then I would have gone back to the grants and say, okay, 30,000 of that is a grant, so I subtracted that out. So that's all separate. The interesting part of the American Rescue Plan is because there's multiple layers of it that I'm trying to make sure that I've got all the positions moved over that we need to, and then there's corresponding benefits that you need to move over, but it varies by who you hired and what you paid, so it's been a little more confusing than normal.
Okay.
So, Mr. Forbes, with that then, so when we look at the numbers and we say 33 million or whatever, that really isn't the total expense, because whatever grant money, you've already subtracted that out. And so if we were to say the programs, what we provided this year is that 33 plus whatever grant money.
You'd be looking at probably another 900,000 if you had everybody's salary in as whole with benefits.
And so when those grants expire or those things, right, then we're gonna have to.
That's going to be an interesting time, because a lot of districts have done what we've done, and we've used it to bring in things like social workers and things of that nature to try to assist and additional teachers to keep the class sizes low. So it's going to be a real question as to what they're going to do. They pumped a lot of money into a lot of districts.
And when will we have to think about that? What year?
Next year plus one.
But to that point, that money wasn't eligible to be spent. I mean, you had to provide service.
Right. Right. So for example,
I mean, we're really no different than any other district.
Oh, no.
In the fact that we had to spend the money to get it.
For sure.
right. And in the first round, which was the ESSER and gear first round, that was a lot of technology, a lot of PPE stuff. The second round, we were able to then go into staffing. So most of the ESSER 2, the GER 2, and the American Rescue Plan, it's all year 2, year 3 kinds of things. The year 1, it's either been absorbed or we've done it another way.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Forbes. So we have minutes from our previous meeting, March 8th. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So
Ms. Paul Fortna. And who seconded that?
It was.
Ms. Hahn. Okay, any questions, corrections? All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Forbes again with our budget status report for February.
Yeah, really not a lot has changed there. We're still looking at the areas that we typically look at, utilities, cost of insurance, substitute teachers, all those kinds of things. And they're all tracking about where we've seen each report so far this year. So I really don't have anything specific to pick off of that report today.
Now this, the estimated 2021-22 expenditures, that is updated every month, correct?
Yes, every time you get the report, it's updated.
Okay. So you're looking at that and looking at what actual is, what you're expecting for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, what I have, which is going to be hard for you to see anything because it's tiny print, but I have a multiple year comparison.
Okay.
So there's a column that I adjust, which drives the dashboard. And so that helps me when I look across because I have 3 years of actual and then projected, so I can kind of get a flow of where we've been with it.
And everything seems to be tracking fairly as expected.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got one question on that. So you're tracking the dollars, okay? And I understand that completely, but where is our usage as opposed to the dollars? I mean, are we holding steady?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Okay. So any increases is in the commodities?
Yeah.
And what do you see percentage-wise where we're at in the last 3 years as increase?
In terms of,
Commodities. I mean, are you seeing a steady increase? Are you seeing it flat?
I would say not a steady increase, but an increase. Not horrific.
Single digits, double digits?
Single.
Until this year.
Pardon me?
Until this year.
Well, yeah. One of the
Till
things
this
that I
coming
adjusted
year.
up was transportation fuel this last draft, so.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. Okay, so then we have the revenue status report for February.
Yeah, revenue status, we had 3 things I want to point out. One, we got our $50,000 of supplemental lottery aid. We also received our first BOCES aid payment, which was $164,000. And then we also received $77,000 for Medicaid. As we've talked about before, we're now over the estimate that we had for that. We were unable to get a regular schedule. They don't have any time periods that they put the monies out, so it's hard to track that, but we are over budget to the positive in that category.
Any questions on revenue? And again, we appear to be tracking as expected, pretty close.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to have ups in certain categories down, and but total, it's pretty close.
Yeah, we're going to be down a little bit in proposed interest income, but we got notification today that the treasury bills are creeping up, so we might be able to take advantage of that again. I think we're going to be a little bit low on our day school non-resident tuition. There's some movement there with people in and out, so. But other than that, the state aid categories seem to be tracking good, and we're obviously over Medicare, so.
Okay, thank you. No questions? Okay. Next, if I could have a motion to bring the treasurer's report for February to the floor. Ms. Paul Fortner, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Any questions on that? Any comments, Mr.
Nope, we're all good.
All good?
Yep.
The left equals the right.
Yep. Top equals the bottom, left equals the right.
Any other questions? I guess you can't get any better than that, can you?
There it is.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a 31-day emergency transportation contract with First Student. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please. Mr. Hawk and Ms. Gallo. Any questions on that? And Mr. Forbes, this was an extension, correct?
Yeah, we're a situation we have foster children that have to be bused into school, and they're in an out-of-district location. So we're enabled by the state to do 2 31-day contracts back-to-back. So we did the first one with the idea and the hope that perhaps something would change and the students could be placed back with their families. That's not happening, it doesn't look like, so we're doing the second one now to get us into Easter break, and then you'll be seeing a full bid for the remainder of the school year coming, probably 2 meetings.
Okay. Okay. And again, I think that, as we discussed earlier, it's really for the best of the students. Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a resolution for participation in BOCES cooperative bidding. We're going to have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So moved.
Ms. Gallo, and a second. Second. Mr. Marshall. Any questions on that? And that's the services that would include, Mr. Zolgakis.
That could be a variety of different things. The way that a lot of that plays out is, we mentioned technology earlier. So we're able to take advantage of pricing that is to our advantage as opposed to us doing this independently. John, other things that would fall under?
Custodial supplies, paper, they do like ink for the computers. I think what else we do? Some of the food commodities for the cafeteria, so it's a variety of.
Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We have the approval of appointment personnel to probationary positions, and that is for Erica DeAngelis. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So moved.
Mr. Johnston, and a second. Mr. Hawk. Mr. Williams.
Yep, just as a reminder, this is a replacement for Danielle Anderson in our library. And again, we thank Danielle for her service to the district, but we're excited to have Erica on board and look forward to her contributions in the library, particularly at the elementary level.
Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Next, we have the approval of probationary appointment of Janet Cruz. If I could have a motion, bring that to the floor, please.
So,
All right. And Ms. Gullo. I always do GC and it's CG. CG. Any questions on that? Mr. Ziliak's this one.
Again, a vacant position, no additions here, so no additional costs, and we're happy to have Janet on board.
Yes. Teacher's aide. No questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Thanks. Next, we have the approval of Billy Jo Rydell to a 6.5-hour-a-day position. Teacher aide. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? And a second.
second.
She spoke louder.
I got the yes out.
Okay. Mr. Ziliak.
Again, always bittersweet when someone moves on from the district. This is a replacement for Valerie Stein. Again, we appreciate Valerie's contributions to the district and her hard work and dedication. But again, we're happy to have Billy Jo on board, and again, look forward to her work here in the district.
Great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the items, the approval of items pertaining to the budget vote and Board of Education election. This is for the annual budget hearing on May 3rd at 6 o'clock. It is for the vote that will occur, the budget vote and the Board of Election vote on May 17th. And there are 2 at-large positions. And a few other things in here. So if I could have a motion to bring the legal notice to the floor. Ms. Vella, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall. Okay, any questions on that? Do I have everything that was in there, don't I? Pretty much, other than a few of the little details, right?
You're good.
I'm good, okay. But we've all read this pretty much, so, okay. No questions? I expect to be hearing from a couple board members later. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of petitions for Board of Education seats. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Mr. Hawk, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Gullo. Any questions on that? It's in the backup. Okay. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a resolution to partner with the Chautauqua County Board of Elections with a cost not to exceed $1,200. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Powell Fortnot, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall. Any questions on that? And that's something that they do every year. We appreciate their work on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Am I good, Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
didn't miss anything, did I?
I'll give you an A.
Thank you, thank you. I'm not done yet, though.
Working towards the A.
I'm not done.
Yeah, it's great. It's time to
Maybe go outside and play now.
Really? Mr. Ziliak, we have a superintendent's report.
Yeah, fairly brief tonight, but something that's a pleasure to bring to you as part of the report tonight. If you've ever been down by our gym and auditorium entrance, you may have noticed a wall of honor that is there. And the purpose of that wall is to honor district retirees, former employees, or significant volunteers whose service and character exemplify outstanding contributions to the Fredonia school community. The honorees' leadership and dedication are worthy of recognition and have inspired others to serve and lead. The honorees' work, attitude, and effort have inspired praise and gratitude among peers, coworkers, students, and families. There are several things that when we consider someone joining the Wall of Honor that we look for in terms of requirements. They are things like a retiree, volunteer, or past employee who parted with the district in good standing, nominees that will, who were first eligible, are up for consideration before others. Under certain circumstances, nominees who are currently serving the district may be considered for this honor, which is not the case currently. They provided outstanding service, dedication, and contributions to the district. Service to the greater community will also be considered. And the nominees have demonstrated qualities of leadership, character, and service to the school community. And we had the opportunity to consider candidates, most recently through a committee for the Wall of Honor. And since there's been a little pause in some of these kinds of activities over the last couple of years, there's been several years where no one has been inducted. So we felt that we could induct a candidate for last year as well as for this year. And the recipients, and we'll start for last year, is a gentleman who served the district for 26 years, from 1955 to 1981. He was instrumental in centralization of the district and the opening of new elementary school on the main campus. He was elementary principal from 1955 to 1963, so 8 years, then the director of elementary education for another 18 years. He earned a Purple Heart and Bronze Star Medal in the U.S. Army, and also was a Rotarian for 25 years, and a member of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as serving on various other community boards. And we would just like to recognize his wife, Marilyn, here tonight for all her support. But we are very pleased to confirm that for last school year, that Tom Barisi will be inducted to our Wall of Honor for last school year. So. On that same note, another gentleman who served the district for 37 years, from 1970 to 2007, began his career as a 7-12 math teacher for about 22 years, served in many other roles, including class advisor, Wheelock primary school principal for about 8 years, district curriculum coordinator for about 3 years, Board of Education member from 2003 to 2007, started our Universal K program in 2000, actively involved in Vision 2000 construction project, and actively involved in many community and charitable organizations. We'd like to also recognize his wife, Margot, as well as his sons, Lee and Lane. And for this school year, the inductee to the Wall of Honor will be Lenny Benton. So we are coordinating with the families to arrange times when we can celebrate this moment and have a more official ceremony and have their pictures go up on the wall and maybe some refreshments and some time to mingle and chat and recognize each of these gentlemen. And we will have more information coming forward about that at a later date. So that's the superintendent's report.
Really? Is it? Nothing on masks or anything else?
They will leave it alone. It's a celebration, too. That's it.
Well, as you know, I had the distinct honor of knowing both of our inductees, Mr. Benno and Mr. Parisi, and they're both fine men. Fine gentlemen, yes.
Going through this process, I learned a lot about each of them and certainly recognize the outstanding work that they did for the district, for the community, for their families. And it was an honor to review the materials and learn more about Fredonia. So it was great.
Great, thank you. So the board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Audience members seeking a response should complete board correspondence sheet and return it to our district clerk, Christine Slagle. This is for anything that anyone would like to present, to bring forward to the board. And it doesn't have to be on the agenda, it can be on anything. Is there anybody who would like to say anything? All the seniors are back there doing their homework. So, do any of the seniors think that you don't have enough homework? Nobody wants to say that to the board? No? Okay. Okay. So the next regular Board of Education meeting will be April 5th, 6 o'clock right here in the high school library. I will also note that the BOCES annual meeting will take place April 7th. It's in a hybrid format via Zoom at 7:30. To register for the meeting, please contact Ms. Slagle prior to March 30th if anyone would like to participate in that. With that, that's everything I've got. Mr. Hawk.
I just want to say thank you to Wheelock for showing up. It was great to hear about all the kids and what you've done to really move them along during the pandemic. So thank you.
Ms. Powell-Fortnell.
Nothing other than, again, thanks to Wheelock. It's been 12 years since I had a student at Wheelock. Wonderful memories with all of these wonderful teachers. So thank you for bringing those back and sharing what's happening now. Thanks.
It's a good group. Ms. Gullo.
Same, great memories. Love those days, love everything about what you're doing. We recognize how important those years are, so thank you for coming and sharing with us. We love it all. And then I wanted to just say I can't wait for the musical this weekend and next weekend. So Fred and all of them.
Yes. Mr. Johnston.
Yeah, I can't wait to share this with my son and daughter-in-law. My little granddaughter is 1 year away. I can't wait till she joins your crew. I can't wait.
Yeah. Mr. Marshall.
Just to echo everyone's sentiments, thank you for everything that Wheelock does. My 3 daughters with Mrs. Foley. But even outside of the classroom, my kids all love Miss Maternowski or Miss Rush. Like, there was interaction with all of the instructors. So thank you for everything you've done and working outside the box for the past couple of years.
Definitely. Ms. Hahn.
I am looking forward to sharing this with my mom, who's turning 90 this year, and she got her master's in early childhood education while I was an undergrad at UB. We would drive together. And She was a CDA advisor for Head Start and very progressive. She's going to love all of this. Elfie Cohn is her hero. So thank you for all that you do.
Dr. Wright?
Well, we, very, like, in the grant world of things, I know Mr. Forbes and I have been celebrating a bit because we've had our consolidated application approved finally, so that's our Titles 1, 2, and 4, so that's very exciting to be able to move forward with that. We continue to work to get everything else, another one is within process right now, and that is the state reserves, so we just continue to chip away at it and work through all of those different things that go with it. I want to say a huge shout out to the Math Curriculum Review Committee. They're working so hard. We had a Zoom today with another representative. We're reviewing various textbook materials and we're doing it according to the priority standards that the group established that we believe are how we're going to, it's how we're measuring the various curriculums to make sure it's meeting our needs and what our teachers deem to be the necessity in the classrooms and the materials and all of the types of things such as, does it have, the provisions for differentiation, for English language learners, for enrichment? Does it have tools for families and parents to be able to help their child understand and do the work? Does it have video components? Does it have, both the digital as well as the paper? And how compatible are they and user-friendly? Readability, all of those types of things. So we're really examining things with a fine-tooth comb. And this is a group that, they're doing this after school on their own. This is part of just their, their dedication to making sure that, we make the best decision-making possible, going out to their respective grade levels and buildings, then coming back with feedback, and it's a continual process. So it's been just really exciting to delve into that work deeper. So, of course, a shout out to Wheelock. It's so fun to see everybody here and to continue to be part of this district and learn more about it. And I'm very excited for the first musical. So I'm very excited as a former parent of two who did musicals from 6th grade on up, and was behind the scenes and inhaling lots of hairspray with curling irons backstage and helping with makeup and all of those things. It's very exciting to partake of the first musical here. So.
Great, thank you. Mr. Paskey.
It's been 3 years since I've used a curling iron.
I'll give you some tips.
Thank you, Wheelock. It's always great to hear what you guys are doing, and you bring it with love every single time, so just very appreciated. A couple things from the past. I just wanted to say congratulations to two of my friends, Tom Barisi, who was my elementary principal, who was going to be honored, posthumously, but unfortunately. But great guy, and also Lenny Bento, who was my 11th grade trigonometry teacher. He was my colleague in the math department. He became an administrator and a colleague, then was a board member. It just loved Lenny, and I'm really happy that they're both on that wall. So that's amazing. Back to musical. We do have our assemblies tomorrow, so they get a preview in school of what's coming up. We're looking forward to the weekend. Our art department is engaged with a pilot program with New York State to add another pathway to graduation that allows students to take an art pathway in lieu of taking both of the social studies Regents exams. They would only have to take one, and they could take an art concentration. So we've been chosen to pilot that. Margie has been working with us on that, and so thank you for your work with it. And Brandy Nudie has been incredible with doing a lot of the legwork for this. So just an incredible opportunity for our kids, and to be able to get out like a year in advance on this before the rest of the state to try out what this is going to be like. So it's exciting for that. Regents exams are on. We got a statement from the state that said we will be getting Regents exams. And on top of that, our school was selected to give field tests this year, which I'm sure the teachers are going to be excited to give up extra class time to test Regents exam questions. So we just found out about that, so I'm getting more information as we speak. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch base on graduation. We are working towards getting back to SUNY Fredonia, and I'm excited for that. It's not a done deal yet. We were looking at the contract. Unfortunately, it says that it is a rescindable contract, so hopefully there is something that doesn't happen down the road. But I just want to be upfront with everybody to say that we're we're working on this, we're hoping everything's gonna go fine, but, you know, I think there's an open end to it, that if something goes awry, as we get close to it, that there's an opportunity for SUNY Fredonia to back out, which is not typically part of the contract. Oh, wait, there was one more thing I needed to say. Go ahead, I'll think of it. Okay. Go ahead. Oh, there it is, it's back. Our Spectator, the Spectator newspaper was selected as the #1 New York State newspaper again for the 4th year. And so we are planning, and this will come up at the next board meeting, hopefully it will be approved, a trip to take some of our award winners to Saratoga, and they will get their awards at a banquet, and at that banquet, they also get to meet with like nationally renowned reporters and people that do journalism for their jobs, and they network with these people, photographers, the whole element, and they get cards of these like professional people, like people that you see on TV, and people that are professional writers for like the Wall Street Journal and so on. It's just amazing. So it's a great opportunity for our kids, and that's going to happen the last week of April. So 2 days in Saratoga.
Next month.
Like next month.
Wow.
Yes. April. This is March. Well, April's next, yeah. But it's the end of April. So it's like a month plus a couple of days. I think I'm done.
You're done.
You're done. Pass the mic.
All
Ms.
right.
Troutman.
Okay, congratulations, Amy and everyone that came tonight. We all know how important that first start is. And, you guys do an amazing job, and just kudos for all your hard work. It doesn't go unnoticed by all of us. Ela State Assessments are coming up for us next week, the last week in March. The 30th and 31st. We are doing computer-based testing, so it will be all done on computers, so our kids are kind of practicing up on that, so we're preparing for that. A week from this Friday, April 1st, is the end of the 3rd quarter. We keep saying April.
I appreciate that.
So it's so hard to believe. 3/4 of the year is done next week. So that's kind of crazy, but we're getting ready for the last 10 weeks. Our art club, Mackenzie Sheldon, is working with SUNY Fredonia students and our art club students to do a design in the middle school. So I'm hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll be able to take some photos and show you. I have been working with some of the HR, PR people at SUNY Fredonia. They've reached out to me, and so they're going to do something on their website about this partnership, so it'll be exciting to see where that goes.
Mr. Grollinger.
Thank you. We're busy planning a lot of the end of the year activities. Our PTO has met. In tonight's board minutes, you approved the color run. So the color run was very successful last year. We really look forward to bringing that back again this year. We're planning an end of the year field day. We haven't had a field day since COVID hit, so we're really looking forward to that. Bounce houses, a full day of fun for the elementary kids. And then we're also bringing back for the first time since COVID hit, the art show, and then our first elementary chorus concert. So both of those things will be in June, and we very much are excited to make these happen, but we're in the early planning phases, so there'll be more details to come. That's about it.
Thank you. Ms. Farrell.
Hi. In the s'more that went out, that's what it's called, right? Okay. There was some really cool pictures from, I think Mrs. Rush sent them over, from World Down Syndrome Day that was recognized this week on Monday. So we had that. A lot of people wore mismatched socks to show their support for that day of recognition. And it coincides nicely with the promoting that we're doing for the Pledge for Inclusion, which is also on the s'mores, so check that out. And I just wanted to make a comment that just this week, Mrs. Piper and I started to, or maybe it was last week, we started to do some meetings together where we transition our preschool special ed kiddos to school-age services. And, it's a collaborative effort, and it takes some time to really determine eligibility for students and what their needs are. And, I bring that up because it's a good collaboration, and it really underscores the extremely powerful effects of early intervention.
collaboration, teamwork, parent involvement, and really the foundation of early childhood education that we were really focused on tonight. So it's just a really cool process that we go through, and it's really enlightening and eye-opening. And thank you guys so much for being here. It's awesome.
Ms. Piper?
I'm all set.
Have I mentioned how special we are? I brought that up now. We just got a little taste tonight of some of the things that are happening at Wheelock and why I'm so proud of it. And every opportunity that I can shout from the rooftops about how special this group of people are because they ask. So we've just been doing a lot of fun stuff. World Down Syndrome Day, St. Patrick's Day was a blast. Mrs. Matt sent some pictures that were in the s'more. We had the high school National Honor Society come decorate our halls, so the kids all thought the leprechauns had been there. It's been a fun couple of weeks, but I think the best part is being able to get outside and play a lot more because the weather is changing, so spring is fun. But thank you for the opportunity tonight to allow me to showcase what they do every day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Forbes?
Just quickly, I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Barisi very early in my career here, and of course, Mr. Vento for many years, both as a teacher, board member, principal, and I think a couple of good choices there.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Slagle?
I have nothing.
You have nothing?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So we anticipate the need to enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to particular personnel. So if I could get a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second.
Sorry.
That was quick. Ms. Goa. Okay. All those in favor of going into executive session signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? We are in executive session at 7:33.